Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Mixtape Matinee Podcast. This week, we were able to interview Dan Shaw of the band Landowner. A couple episodes ago, we talked about Landowner's album Consultant, and we were able to get a hold of Dan, and he agreed to do an interview, and which was really, really cool. And so we're going to play you that interview now. Enjoy. Thanks so much, Dan, for being on the podcast. We're really excited to have you on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to try really hard not to fanboy out, but we're just going to kind of do a rapid fire of succession of questions. Yeah, we were just barely talking before we started recording that I met you in St. Louis like a couple of years ago. Me and my wife, we were visiting some friends in St. Louis, and we happened to see that you were playing, and we were like, oh, we love Landowner, so we went. And you guys were up on top of the roof, and you guys were just sitting there, like, reading books, chit-chatting as a band. And I just thought, oh, we'll just go up and say hi. And, yeah, it was kind of funny. We were like, yeah, we're from Idaho. And you were like, we have fans in Idaho? And I was like, oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I know. That was wild.
Yeah, so that's definitely my wife. My wife was the one that kind of discovered you guys and then showed me. Anyway, it's really fun, and we're just glad to have you on. And it was kind of fun talking about your album Consultant on one of our episodes that we talked about previously. Yeah. We combined your album with the Fugazi album, so it's kind of fun.
I checked that out. You guys tagged us on Instagram, so I was notified, and it piqued my interest. I love Fugazi, so I appreciated listening to that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I guess my question kind of right off the bat is, I mean, I've read in other, different interviews kind of your songwriting process, and I know that when you moved out to Massachusetts, you didn't know a whole lot of people, and so you started writing just by yourself with a drum machine. As you started, writing the music and getting a band formed, did you always have in mind that you wanted to have a stripped down version of like the drum set? Because when we saw you, it was so interesting to see that it was just hi-hat, snare, floor tom, kind of like that stripped back version.
Yeah, it started off, like you kind of said, the first Landowner album, Impressive Almanac, is the product of isolation. And I decided to just use the tools I had on hand, a drum machine on my laptop and a dinky little practice amp and my electric guitar and bass, and tried to just make music that didn't sound like it was missing some special ingredient. Just how can I make music that slaps with this simple kit of parts? And I made it just because it sounded good kind of immediately to me when I was demoing around. And then as I organically started to meet more people in the local music scene and the opportunity presented itself to turn this into a band, we all agreed to just keep the vibe,
just keep it
the
simple.
same, even though, And then the fun thing with that is we continue to write the music that way, where I write the songs using a drum machine at home on a laptop, and then bring the parts to the band. And it sets an impossible standard, especially for the drummer to try to play like that as a human being.
Yeah.
It's like, you're never gonna be a drum machine, but he's an amazing drummer, and it sets up this creative challenge that's really interesting. And it adds to the tension of the music, I think. So it's like what Landowner's music lacks in thickness and distortion and that sort of heaviness that you associate with hardcore usually.
Yeah.
We instead have this like ultra thin, like abrasively clean sound where there's nothing to hide behind. And I think that lends tension to the music, and it also makes the lyrics really clear. And there's a bunch of interesting things that happen with that formula, I guess. We have a self-imposed formula as a band.
Yeah, I have a question related to that. Your music sounds very precise, like there's no wasted motion. What's your recording process like? Like, do you demo things really heavily, or do you try to capture things like in a raw state?
I demo things really heavily. I start with a drum machine, and then I'm just jamming on my own. I think you described it in your previous podcast of how I'll layer the instruments one at a time. And I do tend to start with drums, followed by guitar, then the second guitar, and then the bass usually comes last. Usually vocals come last. And I like taking my time with it, like writing music at home. If anything doesn't feel quite right with the demo, I just sit with it longer and I return to it the next day and I just, zero in on what's not working. And then by the point where it starts to feel right intuitively, that's where I'll share it out with my bandmates. And then an interesting thing about that, having bandmates who are like sounding boards for music ideas like this, as soon as I hit send on an email with a new Landowner demo to them, I immediately realize which parts of the new demos I feel self-conscious about.
Oh.
Shit, they're hearing that idea. That one lyric's got to change. Like I suddenly realize how embarrassing it is that they're hearing whatever half-baked idea. So that's like a really useful part of the process too. And then I get their feedback on it and kind of continue to refine it. So I like not being on the spot in that way and just being able to take the time with the demos until they sit totally right with me and I'm really, feel it all the way through.
Gotcha.
It's really cool to hear about your creative process.
Yeah. My next question actually relates to that. So you were talking about how most of the time bass comes last. I know that in your old band, Health Problems, you were the bass player in that. And so as a bass player, is that hard to like not want to write the bass part first?
Not at all. In my old band, Health Problems, for most of that band's existence, it was just drums, bass, and vocals. We were a trio. And so I wasn't even really playing the bass like a bass in a traditional sense. I was playing it with the treble turned up and playing it more like a guitar, I guess, and kind of trying to make it all sound full. So I was really kind of doing a similar thing just with a different tool, I guess. I was just trying to write complete melodic parts. I was trying to just fill the melodic sonic portion of that band's sound. And a bass was a utilitarian way to do it in that band because it holds the ground really well. Like if you have just a guitar, it's easy to feel like it's missing something. Bass, by being lower, you have the option to play stuff on the high strings, but most of the time there's a good low end, so it feels really full pretty easily.
Yeah, I was just listening to Health Problems before, just kind of preparing for this interview, and it was interesting to listen to how heavy that band was, even though there's only 3 of you guys. So, and I thought it was interesting. It seems like Ian has like a similar vocal delivery as you, kind of a little more raw. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of unique. It's a super cool band, so people go check it out.
Yeah, I'm glad you noticed that because if people were to ask me about my singing influences, that band's not well known or anything, but like I spent years in a band with him and he was a big influence on me. Still is to this day. We're still great friends and he continues to make amazing music.
Yeah. We were just talking about that before we started because I was like, I wonder if Dan was influenced by Ian because when I was listening to it, I could hear that anyway.
Yeah. I want to tell you a story about that, if I may. When I first met him, we didn't know each other. We just had common friends in Seattle. And we started jamming, and he had a solo project at the time that was like this pretty raw industrial project. And he was one of these polite, kind of well-mannered kids when you meet him. And then he goes to perform, and it's like something switched. He was like, it was just the most dark lunacy. It was so compelling. He was it was scary. And I just said to our mutual friend, like, dude, we got to jam with your friend Ian with the industrial tape. Like, I don't know who this guy is, but I want to be in his band. You know what I mean? Like I just kind of trusted him, and then we started playing in a band.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen photos of your guys' concerts. It looked crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Speaking of your influences, I read somewhere that you have a background in urban planning. Is that correct?
Yeah. For my day job, I'm a landscape architect, and over the years, I've dabbled in a little bit of urban planning work.
Oh, cool. How did that start influencing your songwriting?
Well, the stuff that you do day to day, all the time, just kind of occupies a lot of your thoughts, I guess. So I was drawn to, I'll talk more about landscape architecture because that's kind of more what I do, but I was drawn to that as a career choice, I guess, starting in college, and then it's been my job ever since. And then landscape architecture and urban planning are kind of related fields, so I've been a little bit pulled into the urban planning world from time to time in the work that I've done. Cities over the years, you end up on the receiving end of urban planning decisions, and you start to see some of the decision making and some of the systems at play that have an impact on our lives. So I thought that it was interesting to reflect on, the way my life was changing at certain times based on the environments I was living in from that perspective, from the systemic, pattern-based perspective, I guess, of urban planning.
Yeah, definitely picked up on that in the album Consultant for sure.
Yeah, like Swiss Pavilion is one of my favorite songs on the album, and I think that deals with a lot of that. I guess one of the questions specifically about Swiss Pavilion is, when you wrote that song, did you have in mind that you were going to do that little drum break at the end, or was that something that kind of happened while you were with the band?
The basic pattern on the drums, I think I made up on a drum machine, and then to the extent that there's any flourishes or human touches, that's all Josh. Like, I'll just present the drum beat, and then obviously we flesh it out a little bit more as a band.
Yeah, because there's that section in the end where it's just one note, and then he does kind of like, I think it's a 4 count or something right into it, and then he goes right back into it.
I know that little fill you're talking about. That's all Josh. Yeah, he came up with that. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that he probably did the same thing on This Could Mean Something when the drums go out, and then it's just the guitar parts, and then the drums come back in. That's another visceral part of the album that's like my favorite. And every time like, oh man, that's so satisfying.
It's fun. I mean, when you establish as much like minimalism and just the music is as spare as ours tends to be, moments like that stand out. And then it because of the contrast, contrast is just an instrument to just pull people's attention in, it sparks interest, because just as soon as you were lulled into thinking you have the pattern predicted, it changes on you. And I think that that's a useful mechanism in creativity.
Josh is so good. And I even said this on the podcast. You guys, I mean, I've seen a lot of bands, but you guys are like one of the tightest bands I've seen. So it's so fun to see how good he is at drumming. And I've actually recently started learning how to play the drums.
Oh, cool.
And I've been trying to play the Landowner songs just to get like my time down really good. And
it's like a drill.
It's frustrating, but it's also so fun.
I cannot do it. I dabble in drums. I have a kit in my basement, and I can't play the Landowner stuff. That's all Josh. Hats off to him. He's a talented drummer. And I got to say, my bandmates, they shred. They're all in other bands too. The bassist, Josh Owsley, and the guitarist, Elliot Hughes, play in First Children. And Josh, the drummer, and Jeff, the other guitarist, play in Hot Dirt. And Josh Daniel, the drummer, is also in Editrix and The Leafies You Gave Me. All those bands totally rip. Really, like, there's proggy stuff. There's like metal influence stuff. There's like aggressive jazz rock influence stuff. And all those guys, like, they write stuff. They're accomplished musicians, and it's like a different game, bringing like your abilities to play in a band that's just like really repetitive and minimalist like this one. It's demanding in a different kind of way. So it's like, just because they're playing one note over and over again on some songs, it's not because they can't shred. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
No, it's just cool because it's like the timing, you have to be so exact. And I remember like when we saw you guys live, it just blew me away.
Yeah.
It blew me away.
I appreciate hearing that.
My next question for you is, what non-musical influences shaped Consultant the most? So like, were there books, movies, maybe the politics of the time?
Yeah, because on our podcast, we do talk about movies too. So
I'm pretty movie illiterate. My bandmates joke that the only movie I've seen start to finish is 2001: A Space Odyssey, which isn't true, but it's like, it's one of my favorite movies, and I talk about it a lot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
if you're gonna pick one,
if I were to
just
like pick on that movie for just an immediate example, it's the pace of that movie and its willingness to just like send you through a long passage where it's just going to be music now for a long time. There's going to be no dialogue. It's just going to be slow motion spaceships moving for a long time. But it builds this. It works for the overall arc of the experience you're having. That I think an aesthetic like that has a big influence in terms of like just compositional choices and aesthetics for me. I find the use of restraint in that movie to be really powerful, and it builds focus, and it tells like there's an arc in that storyline that's really up for interpretation. And It doesn't jam it down your throat, but it's just really beautifully done. So that's maybe an example of just stuff that inspires me to apply some of those aesthetics into music. And we touched on some of the lyric stuff already a little bit. The subject matter. There are songs that are about urban planning and the physical environments that we live in and the way those shape our lives. That definitely works its way into a lot of the songs on that album in particular.
Yeah, there's a lot about systemic power, like housing, surveillance, tech.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
That's interesting that you're like talking about 2001 because you were like basically describing your own music in a way, like how you were saying, you know, the restraint and everything, that's kind of cool. Yeah, with that movie, I heard George Lucas say one time that 2001 is like watching a sunset.
Oh, cool.
Like a beautiful sunset.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because if how long and drawn out it is, the timing of
Another thing with that movie too is I think it doesn't feel dated. Like it doesn't overreach in terms of the special effects. I mean, it is a little bit. You can tell it's the 60s, but not like cheesily so. And I kind of like that too in like the musical aesthetic. We try not to rely on tricks that are going to make us sound too dated, I think. You know, like there's no special effects or anything with our music. It's just like clean guitar tones and as simple as possible.
So my next question is kind of going back to what we talked about, like how hard it is to play songs live with your band. So what was the hardest song to record / play live?
Do you know that we covered Sleep's Dope Smoker 666% faster with no distortion?
Yeah, and I was about to add, that's one of my other questions because I wanted to know how that all came about because I have listened to it because I love Sleep. And I remember like when I found that out about you guys, I just thought that was the coolest thing because it's something that you wouldn't expect from a band like you guys. But how did that all come about?
I think it started, when was it? 2021 maybe? Like over a text exchange on the band thread, somebody sent like us just like fast forwarded sped up version of Dope Smoker. We all like that album a lot. Like that album crushes. It's so heavy. Like so listeners, if you haven't checked it out, Dope Smoker by Sleep. It's a crushing album. Yeah. Super heavy and slow.
Yeah, talk about restraint.
Oh, yeah. So just to sidetrack for a quick second. I remember being a teenager walking into a record store in Providence where like the grizzly old dude behind the counter put that on. And I was unprepared for what I was hearing. Like I didn't know. I remember the feeling. It's just like, it's metal, but it sounds like cult religious music. Because of how the form is so stretched out. It just sounds like throat singing or chanting or something. But it is metal. It's stoner metal. So anyway, we all like that album, and we were just joking about speeding it up. And then I just committed to the I committed to the bit. Like I took it into like Ableton and I sped it up. Yeah. And I basically, it was my hobby for like a few straight weeks. I just learned each part on the guitar, and I was basically playing along to the sped up version of it. And then kind of played it back and listened to what I had the result of me playing along to it. And I kind of formalized it more and more. And then just set it to like a click, like to a drum beat that approximated the tempo we were going for. And just pieced it all together and treated it like a little EP basically. And it turns into like, it's like a different song basically. That was kind of the joke is it's Sleep's song, but it kind of isn't. Like it's so sped up that it's absolutely unrecognizable. So, I mean, if Sleep decide to cease and desist us because we've like covered their song improperly or something, like, I don't know. It's kind of a far-fetched thing because it's kind of not even their song anymore. So anyways, it took a long time for the band to... The demo I made sat for about 2 years, and then for a Halloween cover show, we decided to be Sleep for Halloween, but to play it that way, like sped up. So we learned it.
Oh, that's
and sick. So Sleep's song is an hour long, and ours clocks in at I think 11 minutes or 10 minutes and 40 seconds or something like that. So we just and so it really derailed our lives as a band for about 6 months because we learned it. We wanted to be able to pull it off live, so we learned the whole thing. And then we were like, all right, well, we spent like a couple months drilling that. We owe it to ourselves to record it now. So then we went to the studio and did this whole session. And we wanted to release it on 4/20/2024 because that would be funny. And like that date was just like a unique set of numbers. So we kind of rushed it. Yes. The recording's a little rushed. We might return to it. If we ever do a proper release of it, we might polish it up a little more. So that was probably the most challenging single song that we played live or recorded.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like, again, it's like the opposite spectrum of Landowner where it's like so exact and most of the songs are pretty fast, but then yeah, sleep is like, I mean,
Stretched
the whole
out.
story with that is like that was incredibly hard for them to record because of how long it was, and
Yeah.
then yeah, all the time it took, and then fighting with the label, and
Oh, yeah.
that's a whole other like episode. But we'll link the video to your cover in the episode so people can listen to it. It's very cool. I love that.
We have talked about restraint a lot as a concept, and my next question actually is about the song restraint from Consultant. It contains one of my favorite lyrics from all of the songs, and it is, "Your cathartic rant has been safely contained and analyzed." And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, my thought at the time of writing that lyric was a reaction to ranting on social media, posting it to the world and feeling like, yeah, I did it. I got that off my chest. And all you've done is you've just fed the data machine some information about that it's going to use for advertising, basically. And, it's in an echo chamber. You know what I mean? It's like, my self-selected couple hundred friends or whatever, or followers have heard it. I've preached to the choir, and all I've done is just kind of fed this self-feeding algorithm advertising machine. So that's what that lyric's about. And that's kind of what that song is about, is just, technology and listening to you. And I think everyone's pretty familiar with that concept.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
On the Consultant, I think this is probably one of my favorite songs is Mystery Solved. And when we saw you in St. Louis, you performed it, and it was amazing. When you guys wrote that, was that originally going to be as long of a song as it was?
Yeah. The demo that I wrote at home is the same length. It's got all those same parts and everything. It's just one of those riffs that's really good and is worth repeating a whole bunch.
The bass riff is so fun.
Yeah.
I kid you not, me and my wife and all of our friends, because we got all of our friends hooked on your music. We sing that song all the time.
It's true. We'll just randomly be like, "Mystery solved."
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I want to tell you something else.
It's so fun.
A problem I run into writing lyrics like that, like I like catchy phrases that people might use on a daily basis that sound kind of familiar, but then I can't say "mystery solved" anymore. Even, you know what I mean? Like even if I'm at work and they don't know that I wrote this song, I can't live with myself saying like, "Aha, we solved the problem. Mystery solved." It's like, no, I know that it's just, I get distracted by that. And certainly I can't say that in front of like my friends who know our band's music.
Right.
A funny little problem I've dug myself into.
Yeah. I love the phrase about, you got a short response to a long question. I love that. Just the whole message of that song, I totally relate to.
My perspective with that song, mostly where I'm coming from writing it, is I was thinking a lot about industrial agriculture and how you take a thing as wondrously complex as ecology. That's the way, plants want to grow in relationship to one another and to the soil and exist in a biodiverse state. And to feed the world at an industrial scale, there's all kinds of crazy inputs that go into suppressing nature's tendency to be biodiverse, and to simplify the operation so that you can, have a predictable corn yield or whatever, and turn it into all the chemical ingredients that go into processed food. And nature tries to take advantage of a monoculture by introducing weeds and things that can take advantage of that vulnerable state. And so more pesticides and more, scientific sort of treatments are thrown on top of it. And it's like, to zoom out for a second, the thought is like the most brilliant scientists in the world are the product of billions of years of evolution. And there's so much knowledge that nature has that we would be well advised to sit back and trust sometimes. The intelligence of nature doing the work, and nature's built-in resilience from allowing biodiversity to carry some of the weight of resilience. We fight against it all the time in industrial kind of science-driven culture. And there's a place for that, for sure. I mean, I'm not anti-science or anything like that, but the idea of mystery solved, to me, shouting that out is sort of like saying, we've figured it all out. You know, all of the complexity of nature has been defeated. You know, the frustrating complexity has been, the peskiness of it has been defeated into submission. And we now have a predictable system that we can just sort of churn through. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that song. And it applies to a lot of different aspects of life in the world we live in. And it's kind of like the amount of minutes I probably just spent rambling about that is partly why the song is so long too. There's just there's a lot you can potentially say about that.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, the bass riff is so satisfying too. I have to say that the bass riff is like the coolest part. I love that.
Hell yeah.
Speaking of Mystery Solved, in some ways it feels like a stream of consciousness essay. Set to rhythm. And earlier you talked about how lyrics are often the thing that comes last. And I think in a previous interview, you talked about how lyrics are the hardest part for you. And I'm just curious what your lyric writing process looks like.
Usually, so everything you said is definitely true. Usually I have like a pocket notebook or like a note file going on my phone. And just throughout the day, if an interesting sounding phrase occurs to me, I just jot it down spontaneously. And then at the end of the week, if I read all that stuff in order, a bunch of unrelated thoughts, one after another, sometimes seem like they add up to something kind of unexpected. And I've learned over the years to trust the lyrical quality of intriguing words more than like composing a rant about a pre-chosen subject matter. Like I get into trouble creatively if I try to just stand on a soapbox and be a news anchor and just report on the thing that's bugging me. It ends up feeling really flat and gets boring pretty quickly. So as time's gone on, I've tended more and more to just like trust interesting, thought-provoking phrases that intrigue me, and I don't even necessarily know their meaning right away. And I try to work those in and tie them into a few things that maybe are about a specific topic and let those sort of be knitted together a little bit. But it does tend to take me a long time. And kind of like I said earlier, I know for sure if a lyric's not sitting right, I feel self-conscious about it. So it's useful to kind of demo it with people I trust. Occasionally, lyrics do come first. We have a song on our album Escape the Compound called 90s, and the lyrics to that I definitely had kicking around, like in that case for years. And I wrote like a bunch of different musical attempts at like, you know, giving those lyrics the right context and settled on the one that ended up on the album. But that was like the opposite, where I banged my head against the wall with the music. But that's a minority of cases. Usually the music comes much easier for me, and the lyrics, like I'm capable of writing them. It just takes me a long time. And then like ironically, it's like I want them to sound kind of spontaneous, like you were saying with Mystery Solved sounding like a stream of consciousness rant. One of my favorite bands is The Fall. I love how Marky Smith sounds like he just sounds like he's just kind of talking like a spur of the moment. And I find that that's really interesting for some reason. And there's an element of that I like to aim for, but it's like they sure as hell aren't written as fast as they're delivered. In my case anyway.
Yeah. We did a whole episode on Perverted by Language.
Oh, cool.
One of our episodes is about that album, because that album's really great. That's cool.
That's really interesting that you say that you try not to come from the mindset of standing on a soapbox, because so many of your songs are political and critiquing of systems, and you still really have such a strong voice in that way, but it is subtle in a way because it doesn't feel like it is contrived, I guess is how I would say
I
it.
appreciate you saying that. I think that I have gotten more away from that more recently, I guess. Like Blatant, that album is a little more blatant. I think that was appropriate for the time when it came out. There are a few songs on it where it's like clear as day what it's about, and they're really political, and I am standing more on a soapbox for some of those. And I think that it works too for the music. Some of those songs to me now feel a little dated. And if we were to return to playing a few of those live, I'd have to think about, you know, does it still sit the right way with me? Is this still what I feel like shouting at people, you know, in 2025 or whatever? Maybe it is. Maybe I'll find a new way to identify with it, or maybe I'll modify something about it. I'm not sure. I find that lyrics that are a little more open-ended, but still evocative, are easier to live with over the long haul. You know what I mean?
I find because me and my wife also, we're in bands and we write music, and I also find the same thing. Lyrics are so hard, and it's so hard to, not sound like you're on a soapbox. So I totally understand that. My next question is actually about because I know you design all of the album covers. Is that something that is pretty quick for you? And do you take I'm sure you take a lot of time to think about them and the design, because that's what you do for a job. Because I guess in summation, your album covers are so unique and they're really cool. So I just was curious kind of what you would say about that. How long does it take you to design something like that?
I take my time with them. I feel like a bird building a nest with those things. I just kind of like work at it and arrange the things and adjust the position of the twigs, for kind of a long time until it all kind of feels right. It's a mysterious, intuitive process, I guess. And I usually, like a lot of creative things, it feels overwhelming at first when I'm looking at a blank slate and I have to design an album cover. And I'll get a few big pieces in place, and usually there's a few dead ends, like complete drafts that I'll completely abandon. Like, all right, I'm going to try a completely different concept instead. And then once it starts to fall into place, it's a matter of refining it, and I'll just try to purposely not look at it for like a few weeks in some cases, and then I'll open it up, and immediately I'll see some crap that I got used to, something that was wrong about it that I had sort of become blind to when I was like in the thick of it. So it helps to take a step back and come back to it. But I just sort of fiddle away at it over weeks, I guess, for each of those.
I like your little ghost that you have on Consultant, or like Phantom, I guess.
Oh yeah, thanks.
That thing's really cool. I also really like how on Escape the Compound, you kind of have the font is kind of like the pixelated thing, which is kind of cool.
I made up that font. I was wondering if
hey, way to go!
I should like patent that font. Or I don't know how you do that. I should like register it as like a real font. You could like
that'd be cool.
Load it on Microsoft Word.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's awesome. My next question for you is: has anyone ever interpreted one of your songs in a way that surprised you or made you see it differently?
That's a good question. Probably. I'm drawing a blank though as to.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't have a great example. I might think of one. Later.
Yeah. If you think of one later, let us know.
Yeah.
So when I saw you, when me and my wife saw you in St. Louis, we actually got we were one of those fans. We came up and got one of your set lists. But I did have a question about some of the songs, and I'm assuming that they're not released, but you guys played Rival Males, Prayer for the Enemy Attack, Bow to Your, and Linear Age.
Yeah. You're reading the shorthand on the set lists. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just reading the shorthand. I don't know the full thing, but are those songs ever going to come out or? Yeah.
The ones that you don't know are going to come out. Yeah, we're working on an album right now that'll have most of those on it.
Oh, cool.
Well, yeah, that was one of our questions too. Yeah, if you're working on new music, so that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's seen us play a show in the last 2 years at this point has probably seen songs that aren't on the album. So basically, all of those are the new album that we're slowly working on. It will come out. We're just taking our time. I mean, most of our albums, especially Blatant and Consultant, we really just shat those out. I really wanted to just have music out there, and I didn't want to have I didn't want to be overly precious and find myself in a position where I've got my album I've been working on for 5 years, and you roll your eyes yeah, guys, you're never going to release that. I wanted to just get it out. I'd rather have it be out and done than perfect. Having done that a couple times, there's enough stuff on those albums that I do wish we had given it a second take, reflected on it a little more, kind of worked a little harder to get just the right take for a few of those songs. That this time around we're doing that. We just would like to have an album that nobody in the band has any gripes with.
Yeah.
So we're just taking a little tiny bit longer with this one is all.
Well, that's good. Were you surprised that we picked Consultant then to talk about? if that's one of the albums that you just pumped out.
No way. Don't get me wrong. I am stoked about it for real. Like
Yeah.
that is one of my favorite of our albums.
Yeah.
It's songwriting wise, I definitely did what I wanted to do with that. I think it sounds really awesome. Everyone played really well on it. I think it's a good collection of songs. Glad you picked it.
Yeah, so sorry, Court. I know I'm interrupting your question, but
That's okay.
there was this funny moment. And I just have to address it. This is more for me, but when we saw you guys, for some reason, and I guess your fans really like him when they come to shows, but everybody was shouting for you to do Floor. Is there something with that? Like I remember being like, do Floor, and then you guys did it, and you guys did it, and
It's
it was
just a popular song.
yeah,
It's a
just
good
a
song.
popular song. I didn't
there
know
were
if like
people-
are there like hardcore landowner fans that are like we have to hear Floor every time or something like that. But
There's a handful of people,
Yeah.
who like that song. There were people at that St. Louis show who we played with back in like 2017 and 2018
Oh,
when
okay.
back when
So that makes
when we
sense.
were first writing that song and playing it. So when we had fewer songs and like
yeah,
that song was new, I think it probably made an impression on some of those people. So they've
right.
hel-
They were just
it-
showing
yeah.
you the love.
I think that's what it is for
Cool.
that
Okay,
crowd
cool.
in St. Louis. We hadn't
Yeah, that was fun.
Nice. My next question is: is there a song that you've been turning to lately that you would recommend people take a listen to?
Ooh, of Landowner
Of anyone,
or anything. Oh, of anything.
anything.
Well, we talked about Fugazi earlier on, and they have endless good songs. Long Distance Runner, I was listening to in the car not long ago. And to me, that's like a perfect, like 10 out of 10 song. That's a really powerful tune. People should listen to that. Listen to Long Distance Runner.
They just released a bunch of like live albums, I think too, like live recordings of Fugazi. I think I just saw
Oh,
that.
really?
Oh yeah, they're always doing that. Yeah, they had that whole live series where they made a habit of taping every single one of their shows and they put it all online.
Yeah.
And then they released a couple of those shows more formally recently on Spotify and Bandcamp, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe my next question will help you out with this, Dan. But when we saw you, you were wearing a Spread Joy shirt. Can you talk about Spread Joy?
They're a cool band. We played with them the day before you saw us in Chicago. And that was the first time I had seen them live. Yeah, we played at the Empty Bottle. And they rip. They're really good. We played with Spread Joy and Cell Ray. And
Cell Ray is so great.
Yeah,
love those
yeah. I
guys.
mean, if you both those bands are a lot of fun, and they rip, and just creative, fast, lean, little like tight songs, short albums. You got the records of both those bands are little gems. I recommend.
Yeah,
both
they
those
are.
bands
Cell
for
Ray
sure.
is so good. Me and my wife are obsessed with those guys.
Yeah,
And then Josh, your bass player, he was wearing a Current 93 shirt.
Are you into them?
I had the, I'll have to be honest, I was going to look them up and then I never did. I remember like having that in like my mind, like, oh, I should look that band up, but I haven't yet.
Yeah,
I need
they're
to.
so do you ever sometimes in the car we'll just kill time, and one time we were driving and we were combining music genre prefixes and suffixes, and we were riffing off twee, like death twee and like twee core, and so we were like, what would twee violence be, is what we said. Twee violence, twee, where it's like toy music. It's
Yeah.
like Precious. Current 93, I would say, are twee violence.
Okay, cool.
I'll
have to actually listen to them, but
they're kind of scary. Yeah, it's like folk, but it's pastoral, but it's really apocalyptic and deathy.
Interesting.
And
Cool.
the singer is very, very British. There's no doubt about that. Like, you're listening to his accent as much as you're listening to the music, and he has like a strange, high-pitched voice. And his imagery, his name's David Tibet. The imagery that he uses lyrically is a swirl of like Christianity, as if he's the first person to have discovered it, and it's this fascinating, disgusting
interesting.
thing. He uses it as imagery. He's not proselytizing or anything, I don't think.
Right.
Maybe, and he swirls it with like animal imagery, and it has this medieval feel, and it's very dark and it's deathy, but it sounds like the soundtrack to medieval peasants frolicking in a meadow. It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe.
I definitely
and they
wanna
can be a
check it
hard
out
pill
now.
to swallow, and I think you should check it out. Anyone who wants something challenging, that's just you can't look away from Current 93 when you put them on. They're one of those bands that like lyrically I got into. Like I used to always kind of be drawn more to music in bands, and I got hooked on Current 93. And similar to The Fall, the vocals and also the lyrics themselves just really, really drew me in with that band, because they're just so, like, you listen to Current 93 and you just think to yourself, is this guy joking? Like, is he for real? It's one of those things. You know, you listen to some things, you're just like,
Yeah.
he must be kidding. Like, this is too
this
ridiculous.
must be satirical or something.
It's just too ridiculous. He must be kidding. But
Yeah.
I think he's serious.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
The word twee violence, that would be a great that'd be a great band name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone should use that. The world is almost out of band names, so someone should
Yeah,
grab
there
it.
you go.
It's true. Do you care whether people understand what your songs are about, or do you like the ambiguity?
Well, it gets back to the thing we were talking about a few minutes ago, where the ones that are more open to interpretation, I shouldn't hope to care that people understand it exactly the same way I do. The ones where I come at it with a subject matter in mind, like, I guess I'd prefer if people understood them, but I care less and less about that, I guess. Some of the most recent stuff I've been writing and stuff we've been playing live that's not released yet. Like, there's some songs where, like, I don't even 100% know what all the lyrics are about, and I really enjoy singing those songs over and over again, because I'm kind of going through it, you know, like, the music is mysterious to me, and certainly it would be to the audience for that same reason. And like I said a minute ago, those tend to sustain me longer, I think.
That's
so
really
I care.
cool.
I guess my short answer is I care less and less as time goes on.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, I have my last question, and this was the one that my wife really wanted me to ask you, Dan. She wanted to know about your stage presence, as far as, you know, how much you think about it or how much you don't think about it. Because me and my wife were talking in private. We were talking about, you know, Dan kind of gives us like this interesting, like, David Byrne kind of like doing, like, anyway, it's kind of interesting because you're very serious and direct. You're looking at everybody directly in the eye, and you're singing about, you know, these serious things, and it's very intense. But then also you'll do like some weird kind of funny shaky leg action, or you'll have your hands behind your back. Anyway, I was just curious about how you think about stage presence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun subject. The first couple of Landowner shows, I played guitar before Jeff Gilmartin joined the band, and then he joined. And the first time I played a show, like a few months into the band, without a guitar, it was the first time I'd ever done that in my life. And it was weird to be aware that I was singing while people were watching, and I had no other excuse for moving. Like, when you're playing a guitar, you have an excuse to move with the music,
Right.
because you're physically hitting an instrument in rhythm, and you can put a little bit of personality into that if you want to. But when you have that taken away, I found that I still had the need to move. Partly there is a physical need to move, because, like, as a singer, you're pushing air out and you're using your body quite a lot. But there is also the aspect of, like, I've said to some people before, it's almost like I'm like a banner flapping in the wind, like conveying, sort of somehow signaling a little bit of the feeling of the music a little bit by moving. And I realized during that first show that, like, all of my movements were inherently like abstract dance, just because I wasn't like literally hitting a guitar or whatever. And I quickly noticed that there was almost like this invisible boundary around me of poor taste. It was sort of like, how do I make movements that evoke what I'm feeling in the music without being, like, to me, stupid looking, you know, without being cheesy,
Yeah.
without being
yeah.
like melodramatic and being like a
corny.
little baby, you know, corny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting like boundary I found myself subconsciously exploring, like in the moment while playing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've never really premeditated like what my movements are going to be like when I'm playing. It is like I've thought sometimes it's like the best you can do as a singer is to just be an exaggeration of yourself, be a cartoon character of yourself. So I try to find little, like whatever little nervous habits or tics or whatever that I might have and just like lean into it.
That's awesome.
And then the other part of that too is it is like a mechanism for making the show interesting. Like I don't take for granted people's attention. If people are paying attention to the band, that's a big deal. I mean, it's like that's what you want, and it doesn't always happen. And so
yeah.
I want it to be like the music starts and like you can't look away. You know, I want to convey that something intense is happening and I care about it and it's hitting you. Like I'm trying to like shoot something at you through my eyeballs maybe.
Yeah.
It's
No, that's
like
that's what I was saying. You have that stare, and that's why it was like, yeah, it's like you can't look away. And the music is so good too. Because my wife always complains, because my wife is crazy on stage. She has a crazy stage presence, and she's totally not like that at home. But it's funny, like how, yeah, when you perform, like it goes back to the music. Yeah, I know. I realize like that would be kind of funny if my wife was going everywhere,
running around and jumping on the
but
rafters.
Similar
at
to your
the house.
music, there is like a restraint even in the performance, but it doesn't distract or take away. It actually, I feel like it heightens the
effect,
the music going experience of like seeing you guys as a live band, because I just remember like I couldn't look away and my jaw was just like I was kind of just like zoned out, not zoned out, but like
zoned in,
like so attention, just looking. Anyway, that was my last question. I know that's kind of a long-winded question.
That's fine. Yeah. No, the last thought on that is I try to imply that there's more that I might want to express that I'm not expressing, if that makes sense. You know, because that's how it feels. You're letting out, like by performing music publicly, you're just poking a hole in the dam and there's like a spout of water kind of coming out, but I'm not here to like reveal all the water behind that dam. You know, it's kind of more interesting to just have like an intense focused like bit coming out, but it feels like maybe the wall of the dam might be rumbling a little bit and there's more back there.
Awesome. That's a great analogy. Well, my last question for you is what's inspiring you lately, musically, intellectually, or just in life?
Anytime I can spend time out in nature, it's kind of a contrived answer, but doesn't happen every day. And just being in touch with the world and the cosmos that creates us is a well of inspiration, you know, at a pretty deep level. So there's always that and good music.
I don't think that's contrived at all. I think that's actually a beautiful answer. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the episode on. Thanks so much, Dan, for being on. And
is there anything that you want to promote at the end, or any upcoming projects that you want to shout out?
No, I think I mentioned the bands that my bandmates play in. First Children, Editrix, Hot Dirt, The Leafies You Gave Me. People should check those bands out. Those guys do a lot of awesome work in all of their projects. And Landowner will eventually release a new album, probably early next year would be my rough guess. I don't actually know yet when it'll be, but it'll be good when it comes out. I think we're working on some good stuff. And in the meantime, we're just playing shows. We're not a band that drops everything in tours for months at a time, but when we can, we dip out to the Midwest or whatever and play around the East Coast. Come to one of our shows if you can.
You ever going to come out this way?
I'd love to. You guys are in Idaho?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Hey,
you could go to Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
We could.
Yeah, I mean,
we could get a show set up in Salt Lake easy, and our band would play. That would be an honor if we could play with you, if at all possible. But
That'd be sick. Yeah, we should figure out how to make that happen. I'll talk to my bandmates. We'll try to get out to the West Coast somehow.
Yeah, just saying, like, we've converted everybody to your music out here. So you
true.
do have a lot of fans
yeah.
out here in Idaho. So
I appreciate
yeah,
that.
it's kind
We
of
should
fun.
definitely go.
It's kind of fun how music will find people that you least expect. which is kinda cool, but-
Health Problems, my old band in Seattle, tried to play in Boise. We went on tour once, and the cops shut down the house show before we got a turn to
Oh,
play.
no.
Dang.
Yeah, it was a bummer. Yeah,
That's
we
a
got to see. It was
bummer.
there was like an emo kid with an acoustic guitar, and then like a really heavy, like sludgy sort of punk band that was super loud, and the cops came because of that. So we ended up just jamming on like a little Farfisa organ, and then we drove away and slept in the desert that night.
Oh, wow.
Just like,
So
like
that's your-
outdoors. Yeah, we didn't even
your-
have a place to stay.
out among the sage grass of Idaho.
So that's your memory of Idaho, huh? That's funny.
Yeah, it was
funny.
not playing there.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to come out to Yellowstone, we live about an hour away. So
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah. A corner
Yeah.
of Idaho is in Yellowstone, isn't it?
yeah, if you ever want to come out,
Yeah.
you're more than welcome to crash at our house.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Or Salt Lake would
Yeah,
be
I'd love that.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Dan, and we will catch all of you guys on the next episode. Thanks, Dan.
Great, thank you.
You're looking for a sense of purpose. 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 Sketch comedy routine impersonator finally made me see that we're living in a dark joke. I'm putting sarcasm to work. Cranking out the hits. Ever since the stunning revelation that the much superior power of your shopping habits has counteracted any progress you had made on the burning issues you believe in. Sarcasm's all that's left. And you're looking for a sense of purpose. In a routine, white noise, a bird, like a church recruiter tells you you look like you need a sense of purpose. He's holding up a clue. He holds it to the light. He's digging deeper than he typically would have dug before. Says this could mean something.
This could mean something.
Starving for meaning. She wants so badly to discover that this could mean something.
This could mean something.
Hear that sound? That should tell you that this could mean something. Talking to the wall. Talking to the wall. Until it starts talking back. 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 Until it